The SDLC, or Software Development Lifecycle, is a formal process used in the designing, developing, and testing of new software. Developing software is expensive, so the formalization of the process is intended to ensure the outcome is successful. Even though you may not be in IT, you will likely be part of a committee or project group performing the SDLC. Since the purpose of the SDLC is to encourage communication and collaboration between all stakeholders in a project, you will find most members of such working groups are in fact not even members of IT. The typical SDLC consists of about 6 phases. I say about 6 because, depending upon who you ask, you might get more or less, but generally speaking, there is a consensus around these basic processes. Phase 1, requirements analysis, is often overlooked, but is probably the most important phase. This phase ensures the purpose of the product. Whether building software yourself or even implementing software you have purchased, it is always a good idea to sit down and discuss with your client, whether it be an internal department or an external customer, and determine what their actual requirements are. Too often, miscommunication in this phase costs problems or money down the line, and wasted energy and expenses on solutions that don't even meet what the customer is trying to achieve. Phase 2, design, is similar to storyboarding for a movie. In this phase, a solution is designed showing how the software will work. It can be presented to all stakeholders so they can determine whether it is a good fit for the requirements. Phase 3, development, is where the coding actually begins. Note that we are already halfway down the phases before we even start to write code. Writing code is expensive and time-consuming. We want to make sure we know what we are writing before we even get there, or everything we do is just wasted. This is a measure twice, cut once philosophy. Phase 4, testing, involves ensuring the software works, as well as whether it meets the requirements. It typically goes through an approval process before it can finally go into production. This phase may also consist of a pilot test of a small group of users. Phase 5, deployment, releases the product you have already written so it can finally be used by the intended audience. Finally, Phase 6 involves the ongoing maintenance of the software. There are 2 major ways these projects are typically run in an IT department: the waterfall and Scrum methods. Waterfall, a traditional approach to project management, requires you to gather and build the entire feature set up front with deadlines and an expected completion date and cost. Scrum, or Agile project management, is a philosophy which moves to the working stages more quickly, breaking the project into smaller tasks and provides a more iterative approach. Scrum works in smaller chunks known as sprints, where the project team works to complete smaller tasks and is able to shift priorities at the end of each sprint, making the process more agile.